guys done that you learned from that you changed, did differently over the years of coaching? Whether it's dealing with leadership or dealing with uh, players individually or positionally, tactically. Is there something that you went through that was sort of a wake up call? I have a couple of stories, but just curious about yourselves, is because everything certainly doesn't go perfectly. It's a bumpy road. Anybody?
Well, I know that when I didn't get renewed at SAIT in the 80s, I was really crestfallen
Yeah,
because college hockey was pretty big at that time too.
yeah,
You know, in the paper, there were write-ups of our games and everything.
yeah.
You know, and I really had to think, and I decided if I'm going to coach, I have to get better. So I wanted to I wanted to coach with people at you know I ended up coaching at U of C where I could coach with people like Willie Desjardins and Mike Johnson and Slava Leonard and Terry Johnson, all these guys, NHL bound or whatever. And I learned from them, and that was kind of my mindset that I had to learn from people, and I started going watching the Hockey Canada, taking those videos of stuff I do now to build up my toolbox of things I could do in the ice with players, and so that was like 1988, I think. So that was because I was deciding, do I want to coach or not? I was already pretty busy at my school and had kids and this kind of stuff. So that's kind of was significant with me.
Yeah, I agree with Tom there. The importance of um, self-educating, if you will, putting yourself surround yourself with people that you can learn from. Um, I know back when I used to do some things in the summers with the Hartford Whalers. So after summer hockey schools and that, so I got to know some of the players, coaches um, fairly well, and one coach in particular uh, was really great. Kevin McCarthy was the assistant with the Whalers at that point. We had good conversations, and then he actually coached in the American League with a team called the Beast of New Haven, who had this incredibly mascot that was kind of like a dragon, kind of like a gargoyle. It was just crazy, but he was great because he would let me come to his practices and actually sit in the room with he and his assistant coaches before the practices, and I just sat there and tried to be the best sponge I could. And I wasn't sure once I got on the ice, I was looking at some drills for sure, but my focus was on how he was approaching his staff, how his staff was taking things in. Then when the practice were being run, I was paying, I think, more attention to the roles that he had and the staff had on the ice and their interactions with players. So that's that's where I think I learned, hopefully, to become a better coach. Watching someone at that level that was successful, how they interacted, how with their staff, how their staff interacted amongst each other, and the real human piece of that puzzle.
Peter, how old were you? And at the time, what were you coaching when you went into that self education thing and took advantage of the opportunity? Tom sought it out. He was, sort of crestfallen and I didn't know this, Tom, but I never thought of, gee, how did you get involved with the UFC? Why did you get involved with the UFC? And
Well,
it's
that was
interesting.
random. That was random. I wasn't coaching that one year,
Yeah.
the Olympic year, and I ran into Mike Johnson, and he was doing his masters, but I coached against him for 4 years at the college level, and he was helping Willie with UFC, and it was just a random thing, and he said, "Well, you should be coaching. I'll talk to Willie," and I joined the staff as an assistant coach then. If I didn't run into him, I probably would have never ended up at UFC because I didn't know Willie.
Peter, what about you?
So for me at that point, I was coaching ACHA college hockey, which is club level hockey. It was just before I began prep school coaching, so I was probably 40. I would say I was probably around 40 years of age. Had been around again. We talked a little bit in the past, been around it, but that's when I felt I knew that I want to take this as far as I can possibly go with it. And how do I do that? How do I make myself better? And I think like that old saying, right? Good players make good coaches. I think being around good coaches made me a better coach. I realized that. I recognized that fact, that I had a lot to learn, but more importantly, I wanted to learn. So I put myself in that, I was able to put myself in that position.
Well, myself, I think coaching high school sports was like, you sort of were off the seat of your pants. You went on your sports knowledge, but we did have the advantage of an understanding of teaching and communication and the importance of that. So I think, Tom, we had a foundation that went with the fact we were educated teachers. So I learned, and I think the bottom line here, Peter and Tom, is the word learn. Every year I coached, I learned. I coached a sport that I never knew anything about and got better at it. But I had that philosophy of, I really don't know much, and admitted that to the players. But I did make a concerted effort to learn, whether it was observing people, but more often when you're in school sports, you're on your own. And you can talk to people, you can observe, you can go to clinics. So I got involved in that education stream outside and above the actual coaching. And in our province, they provided an awful lot of educational opportunities, and I took advantage of them. And every course conductor clinic I went to, and the course conductor clinic is a person who delivered coaching clinics, and I was one of them. They educated us well. And I often took things back that I experimented with in school sports that I had taken away from clinics or from classes that Dave King sent me to with the national team that he couldn't attend because he was too busy coaching. And I incorporated those modules into my phys ed curriculum and actually experimented with them with teams I coached in school and in the community. So I'd have to say the biggest thing here is, what are we doing to get better? And even at our ages, what are we doing to get better?
Well, the thing that really probably influenced me more than anything is just at my end of the tenure coaching the men's team at State, I met Johanny. George brought him in, and I went to all these guys George brought in from Europe. They gave 2-week, 40-hour seminars. And we hit it off, and we were both phys ed teachers, and he was like Gordie Howe of Finland, kind of the guy that built the whole coaching structure and everything. And, and we started working together on some project he was doing. And then he brought me to Finland, and he brought me to Finland through the 90s. I went there 12 times, and Yursinov was coaching TPS, who I later coached with in Salzburg, and had me as a guest coach. In fact, I took one of those Hockey Alberta. We put together a checking thing. You were doing it, and I did it in Finland, and Yursinov saw it and asked me to run the same thing with TPS. And Saku Koivu was like 18 years old, and all kinds of Hanna Verta and all that were on that team. So I was guest coach for Yursinov. But I ended up, working with Johanny for all of those years, and we wrote the program for Austria and all that. But I learned more from him. And then what happened, it really influenced my teaching, because my last 13 years teaching, I ended up with double classes. So from 48 to 60 kids in a small gym. And the way he organized things and all this, and the little games and all these, I could keep every kid busy. And we ran all kinds of tournaments with rules, and, just his method of coaching just helped me so much get through that, because before that, I would have had half the kids sitting down, like I saw when I went back to the school, junior high kids sitting down with nothing to do. They're never going to get in trouble. And I kept everybody busy and ran a really good program, because I, basically learned that from Juuso. So he was the biggest influence on me was Johanny, for sure.
Peter, what I'm hearing Tom say, Tom is running a hockey school for U15 prospects, and a lot of the kids that are hoping to play for him next year and be drafted by him will be there. Tom, my question is, you've drawn the line at 20 players.
No, 20.
Yeah, but I'm saying, how much more good can be done running a school like that with a larger number of players, so they can benefit from it, and your concept of stations and keeping active, is that something to consider moving forward?
Well, there's kind of a critical mass that you can't do some things because too many people are standing around. So we're considering whether to let in more kids and add, have 3 goalies, but that's, can do it either way. Like in Jasper, we did the same thing, and we had kids from 6 years old to 16 on the ice at the same time, and 6 little nets. There's usually no goalies at them, so you can, you take whatever number you have and go with it. So I don't know.
Peter, how much of what we're talking about here, I don't know if you have a formal contract with the Minor Hockey Association, but with the mentorship work you do with communities and teams now, is there any takeaways from this? Anything that you would move forward and experiment with?
Well, there are, especially from this past season, and certainly, always listening to what you guys are saying. I want to dig a little deeper in with these minor hockey coaches and find out what their end game is. Because are you just Are you doing it because, you know, you like the sport and your kid's involved and you get to be on the ice because your kid is on the team? Do you have an ambition of moving forward in the coaching ranks? It's hard, right? Because it's hard to make a living coaching. Because until you get to some very high levels, right? It doesn't really pay that well. And you probably have other skills that in the real world, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it, you're making more money. So what is your end game? Do you actually want to become a coach? Is that going to happen at some point? And even at the college level, like I say, with these younger guys that are getting and being these head coaches, what's your end game? I mean, because they're all coming out of college with a degree that again, initially they could probably make more money and are making more money as a whatever it might be, maybe in finance, because I see a lot of that with these guys, as opposed to being a head coach. So how do we move forward? Do we, as we talk about, it's easy with players, right? Because you're young, you're playing, and you want to keep playing and playing, get to the higher levels, and that is your goal. So as an adult, how do we cultivate, lack of a better way to put it, better or more experienced or coaches who can understand more about the development piece with these younger players? A bit of a tangent, I get it from what your question was, but you know, I think that part is important when you ask, like, what do you learn and what have you seen? That's what I've seen. I've seen to some degree, people who are resistant to learning because they either it's an ego or maybe they just feel like they know enough for the level they're coaching. And then I've seen the other group of younger people that are super enthusiastic and open to anything that you want to say. But is there something, a way to teach the coaches other than, like, Canada has its coaching development program, right? USA Hockey has it. I was an instructor in that for many years. So moving forward, how do we do that? What is there a vehicle to do that, to actually create coaches? We want to create elite players, but there's really I don't see that much in place to create necessarily elite coaches. There's information on how to coach, but all these nuances and things we talk about, I don't see a lot of that.
Well, that's kind of why I do my Facebook thing, to help guys out. But you know, you can only do so much there. But you know that, because like I went to that conference, there was 240 coaches from 40 countries. You know, the guys that I saw India on the back of shirts. There's China. You know, all kinds of. A guy from Turkey sat with us the whole time, and I'd met him before. So they're all thirsting for, you know, like what you say, and you know, how do we get that to them? And some of them have, you know, good programs in their countries. Like Great Britain has gone from a nothing place to they only lost 4-2 to Canada, and they I think they won a game or two in the World Championships. You know, so they must be doing something right. I'm assuming, and you know, so your question is how do you know what people want to get from it, and how do you get them that information? You know, it's tough questions.
Yeah, well,
Peter, you you said what's your end game? What do you mean by that?
so are you someone that's coaching in youth hockey because you want experience and you hope to maybe, I don't know, coach high school, prep school, maybe coach college someday, do you have, you know, the experience and wherewithal to maybe try to be a pro coach at some level? Like what is your, where are you at? Because it's tough, right? Because you're, you know, you've got your job, you've got your wife, you've got your kids, and, you know, you got your salary and your benefits, and, you know, you come, hey, honey, I want to start out as an assistant coach on a Division III hockey team, and I can make probably almost $20,000 a year. What do you say? Probably not going to go. That conversation is probably not going to go very well.
Well, my question is, why? Why do you do what you do, Peter? Tom, why do you do what you do? I know why I do what I do.
Well, I do what I do because I feel like one of the luckiest people on the planet, to be honest with you. Having been able to coach at the NCAA level, right? I think there's what total now 60, 61, 62 Division I teams and about 85 of the rest. So, you know, for that period of time, when I was coaching, I had the job that only 150 people in the entire country had, right? Head coach of a men's college hockey team. So I just felt so fortunate to have gotten to that point, and that I get excited about if I can help someone else grow and maybe get to that same kind of a level, and if not, I know we can work together and we can get better. So that's kind of been my motivation with anything I've ever done. You know, the same thing when I talked to Wally about when I was in horticulture with my family for, you know, 40 plus years. Anytime I bump into anybody that, you know, is interested in horticulture in any way, I want to help them out. I want to give them knowledge that I had so they can have the same great experience that I had, regardless of what it is.
Tom, what's your why? You're
Oh, really
still doing it.
similar, Peter. And it kind of suits my personality. I remember in elementary school organizing teams and having tournaments with my friends. And then you had to make the 12-year-old team in hockey when I was, you know, so I'm going through elementary school. And so I organized a St. Charles school team and challenged Richmond school to a game. And we, you know, we did that. And I thought I had to be a goalie too, because I outgrew my skates. And I got my sister's skates, or white tube skates, that were like 5 sizes too big for me. Bobby Orr couldn't have skated in these things. So I'm trying to skate, and of course, the leather's on the ice half the time. People said, well, you got weak ankles, you better be a goalie. So for a little while, I wanted to be a goalie. So I was a goalie at that time. But I did organize stuff, and it kind of suits what I do. And, you know, that's why I became a phys ed teacher, and kind of always had a passion for hockey. And, you know, a phys ed teacher, you coach all kinds of sports, right? Just like you have, Wally. And, you know, George offered all those courses and everything for years with guys coming in, and I took them all and tried to get pretty knowledgeable, and, you know, kind of just like doing it. And right now, I continue on because one of the main reasons is I coach with my son. I wasn't coaching, and they called him to coach a team. He said, well, if my dad will help me. So we coach together. So, you know, that's an old man's reason. But I've always enjoyed it. And I ended up coaching college because I got a call one day while I was teaching junior high, and someone was taking over the state team. And he'd been a goalie and really didn't know how to run practices. And the coach had quit, and he was the assistant coach. So he was going to be the head coach, but he just said, I need someone to run practices. So they called me out of the blue one day and said, do you want to run the practices at SAIT? And, I was always pretty good at that. So I said, sure. So I ran the practices one year and like totally by myself, because the other guy used to come and just say, okay, Tom, you take over and leave. And then he'd run the games. So, but the next 3 years, I ended up being the head coach. But, so a lot of things happen. You just kind of fall into them out of the blue. That was that. And Mike Johnson coming saying, why don't you come join us at U of C and all this kind of stuff. So I just enjoy coaching. That's probably why. And going to these conferences, I love going to them. I see people I know, and I brought a thumb drive with my 1,500 PDFs on it, and a few guys took it and copied it onto their hard drive, and they really appreciated it, and got to meet a lot of people and listen to some pretty good stuff. And Prague is an incredible city, so get those kind of experiences from it. And also, coaching in Salzburg for a year and being brought to Vienna to in-servicer coaches for a couple of years in a row. All that's kind of neat.
Well, Simon Sinek is sort of a leadership guru up here. Is his name known in the States, Peter?
Not, I mean, I'm not familiar with it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is or isn't.
Well, he's, there's a number of authors like Malcolm Gladwell. They've written books on leadership and coaching. And Simon is a guy, and the first thing he says is, if you're a leader in an organization, is know your why. And listening to both of you, you're doing it because you love the sport and you're learning something every day from it, which is satisfying. And I think both of you, particularly Tom, he's doing it to share. And he would like people to make use of whatever he's creating. He's giving it away. And I don't know that there's anybody on the planet who has a library of resources that can be used. And Tom, I don't know if you followed up with the coach's site, but I know that
contacted.
They're interested. My material is sort of the shark stuff. And it's not as specific and purposeful as yours, Tom. So hopefully you can take and manage that. But Peter, I had one of the coaches in our association at U15. I asked him the question, why does he coach? And his answer was to get as many kids into AAA hockey as he could. And I suggested what was more important was, what are they going to do when they're done playing hockey? And how are you going to influence them? So you've got coaches like that who are outcome driven, achievement driven. And I think the bottom line of what we do for the good of the game and the sharing is that everybody we work with, the young coaches developing leadership, the captains we're developing, the team and the influence of the players we're working with. And that goes back to John Wooden being asked by a reporter after his 12th national championship, what do you think of your team? And he said, ask me in 25 years. And so that to me is sort of the bottom line here. The why of coaching is, we can get better at X's and O's, and we can get better at leadership. And we actually, this group knows more than anybody about the game and how to deliver it at all ages. But we also understand that we don't know that much. That's why we keep talking. So while we're sharing information with others, I've got more questions and answers than I've ever had. Like Tom, I'm scratching my head with Girls Hockey Calgary and the lack of fundamental teaching of tactical skills to create space and time, and bridging the gap between applying them in a game and thinking and executing the skills, decision making. And it's not rocket science. It's a matter of do the right stuff, the right amount at the right time, the combination of deliberate and random practice, random being game-like transition practice, as Time calls it, smarter hockey players. So that's really amusingly frustrating for me to have had formal.
You're a teacher, and these guys that come in, a lot of them are ex-players, but they, how do you deliver what you know? And it doesn't matter what you do. My wife was the head of a unit in the hospital, and the frustrating part was, for people, the nurses, the other nurses she was in charge of, to think on their feet and take the knowledge and apply it. And I think that's the frustration always is, Peter, not everybody knows how to teach. That's for sure. It's
it's interesting. Tom, I watched a game last weekend. I may have told you this. U15 head coach, played in the NHL for 10 years, and he's one of the strongest, knowledgeable coaches in our association. Young, enthusiastic, and vocal. And he's telling players what to do out loud all the time. And I'm just watching, and I've told him before, I said, you only need to tell the players what's happening on the ice. Yelling and telling a player what to do on the ice, you're distracting them. I said this last year, and he recorded himself, and he learned from it. I mean, for an ex-NHL guy to go through the trouble of recording himself not once, but twice, he wants to get better. But you can't change who you are as a driven former athlete becoming a coach. So the last game on Sunday, Tom, the game is 1-0. They're winning. The other team's applying pressure in their zone. I'm right beside their bench in the stands with the manager. And the pressure's on, and he's screaming at the D to ice it, ice it. And the D stopped, faked one way, went the other, made a perfect pass to the winger who got it out of the zone. And I said to the manager, I said, there's where you can't play the game out loud and take away their ability to make their decision because they're on the ice. And I think that's the fortunate part, Tom, is you give the kids the tools and you let them apply the tools with transition games at your practice. And I know small area games, well, a game is a game. Possession changes back and over, and the joker rule of passing and getting open is critical. And these are fundamentals to playing the game. So I think in generally speaking, we don't play the game. And I'm talking provincially at the provincial championships. They worked the game. They were structured. They worked hard, but there really wasn't much passing, much natural play. And it got down to, as Tom said, it's 1-on-5 hockey for the most part. So fortunately, we get to watch the NHL, and they really know how to use each other. But it's got to be frustrating coaching and hoping that those players someday will be able to do some semblance of what we're observing in the playoffs.
Well, they're all 1 out of 1,000 that make it, so they're pretty elite.
Well, I think I look at coaching and I think of Gardner McDougall, who won 20 plus national college championships at UND. Peter, you don't know this. You might know this, but he was one of our guests the season before this. He's well known in Eastern Canada, and there's a major junior league there. And one of the teams that's hosting the Memorial Cup that year, they were out of the running early, but they're hosting it. And he got hired to take over the team with 30 days before the Memorial Cup. And he took over the team and brought his athletic trainer. They did a fitness regime. He did all the sports things you need to do. He team built. He ended up winning the Memorial Cup. So he's doing the right stuff, the right amount, the right way. This guy can take a team like that in a short term and transition them to playing a team game that's the best in the country at that age level in literally 30 days.
Well, he just went 43-0 this year.
He went 43-0 this
He
year.
coached the under-20 team and went undefeated. I don't think he lost a game in the 2023-24 season.
Yeah. Now he's hired by the Quebec Major Junior League. He's going to coach in the Major Junior League last year, but he's a real authentic person. We've had him on as a guest before, and I'm hoping going to give him a call again to come on and talk about his journey, what he's learned, and some of the things we've talked about. But guys, it's been a great morning here. We're at 1 hour and 46 in my recording. And Peter, Tom, I really didn't know where we were going to go, but I like today's session. I've broken it up into 5 parts in my note taking that I'll edit and share because they're all really important topics. And Tom, the PDFs that you send me, I'm sharing them with all the Sharks and all the coaches and encourage them to pass it on so that whoever gets it can do the same. Not only get it and use it, but get it, use it, and pass it on to others. And there's that ripple effect to help the game.
Now, I just got an email from a coaching conference in Prague, and they sent the PowerPoint overheads. You guys want them?
Yeah.
Anything you can send, absolutely.
Yeah, so I just got them, so I'll send them along to you.
Thank you.
Now, Tom, you shared a bunch of pictures from the conference of the screen with me already. Have you not?
Yeah, but those are random ones I took.
Yeah.
All of them.
But these are all of them.
Yeah, they're really good because later on, I think you can go to their website for free, watch the presentations.
Yeah.
It was a little soft skill centered.
Yeah.
Like I think some of those people from those 40 countries that don't have a real hockey culture would have really appreciated a lot more
Yeah.
meat and potatoes. But, you know, it was, you know, pretty good stuff anyways. You can't do everything, and so you do what you can do.
Yep. Well, guys, thanks for getting up in the morning and coming in. And next week we won't. Thursday, Tom, we're going to meet on what day have we meet for coffee for next Thursday, right?
Thursday, 9 o'clock, I think. We did.
Yeah, 9 o'clock at Cadence. So we won't be doing a session that week. But Peter, I'll take some pictures and send them to you of the group and the coffee house that we always met at over many, many years to start this sort of a unique group called the Sharks.
We'll have one for me, straight up black, no sugar.
Okay.
Oh, you're
All
welcome.
right.
Yes.
Okay,
Just-
man. Take
Your
care.
pleasure.
All right, enjoy the day, fellas. Thank